This is Too Long for a Voice Note, a podcast about everything and nothing at the same time. Presented by Claire
and Enzo. Our podcast is produced in London. Some conversations are just too long for a voice note.
Hey, he's Enzo.
And she's Claire.
And this is Too Long for a Voice Note.
Welcome back, everyone, to our channel, to our podcast, Too Long to a Voice Note.
Thank you guys for joining us again for another
Thank
episode.
you.
So before we get into it, please do remember to
subscribe, like, follow us, stalk us, whatever you want to do. Share.
We're on Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Everywhere.
Obviously here on YouTube,
Spotify. Please don't forget to rate us. If you're listening right now the episode,
Yes.
please go to Spotify and put us 5 stars for us. Also in Apple you could do it.
Yeah.
YouTube, just subscribe if you're not. So thank you very much for your support because it really helps us.
It really helps the podcast to grow. So,
So thank you very much.
how are you, Enzo? How
I'm
was your
good.
week?
We had actually a really fun week this week
We
because we
did.
went party after people are like, who cares? But we haven't partied for months. I think
Yeah.
after the pandemic, party is a whole event, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we haven't partied since your birthday,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, we
So it was very
haven't
fun. We went to
partied.
a Latin club called
Mestizo.
Mestizo. You know, Salma Hayek loved Mestizo.
I know, I was thinking that.
It's crazy that she said she loves Mestizo because also Mestizo has a restaurant and it has a bar and a shop. So you got all the 3 things, and the restaurant actually is really good as well.
Have you
The proper
eaten
restaurant.
there?
I went with my cousin one. It was really good.
Yeah.
There's restaurants proper Mexican but really good quality.
Because does she live in? No, she doesn't. She lives in Paris, right? Because she's married to the Gucci guy,
I think
right?
she said she lived here. I think in short, she mentioned where she lived. So that's why she used to go to Mestizo. But yeah,
Imagine
being in Mestizo,
and
your
seeing
business
Salma Hayek.
yeah.
But that's so cool. But it's just it's a Mexican club, basically,
Yeah.
underground club, and it was really fun.
It's really good. If you want to go, it's only open on Thursdays,
Yes.
so it's really fun.
Yeah.
You really have a lot of fun. It's very sweaty and very intense.
Very,
so if you want to
very.
go for a night out and have the best energy, it's a really good place. So really we have
and
a lot
really
of fun.
inexpensive, really nice people
It's
there.
really good prices. I remember it's the same prices as always, to be honest. The last time I've been there was 3 years ago, the same prices.
Yeah.
I think that's the magic of it. People always go back because they're not really they're gonna stick money at you.
Definitely.
It's just a vibe. So
yeah,
it's really
it's
nice.
one of those secret gems of London, I think.
Definitely,
That kind of vibe
I would
it
agree.
has,
I would
you
agree,
know?
right? So it's cool because we can go back soon. But it was
For
very
sure.
fun.
It was
So we have
super
a break. Also, we have a few days.
We have
off
the
because
Easter bank holiday.
Do you
and all of
celebrate
that.
anything Easter? Do you have any Easter thing you're
Not really. Not really. I actually have to say that I do really like Easter because it's
I
much
have
more
days off. I don't like Easter because it's 2 days off. It's
I'm not working because it's less hype than Christmas. You know what I mean? Christmas is a lot, and it's a bit the build up to Christmas really kills me because it's just all the music and all the shopping and all of that. Whereas Easter is just it's really nice. The weather is really lovely. Spring is in the air.
Spring,
that kind of the change of season. But no, normally a family meal, but we're not really doing anything this year.
Yeah, right.
Normally it's obviously a massive thing in Venezuela.
Yeah, it's another
Catholics.
Catholics they go mental. There's
Parades.
We have this thing. I did that with my mom, I think, twice. You have this thing that you go to 7 different churches the same day. So you need to go to 1, 2, 3, 7, and you do walking
On Good Friday.
Yes, I think it was on Good Friday. Maybe it wasn't. Yeah, I think so. Which is Viernes Santo for us. Saint Friday. I don't know.
Friday,
It was
Saint. It's actually really funny. I don't think I told you this, but when I was I went to Ecuador in 2014, we happened to go on Easter weekend. So I was in Quito and they did this. It was wild, and I was like, oh god, this is so great that I've actually seen this. But it was this parade that's probably very common in Caracas as well. And but people were dragging the cross.
Yes.
And this guy was had his shirt off and was wearing thorns, a wire, being Jesus kind of thing.
It's intense.
Oh, okay. Well.
You're wow. Yeah.
But
also, some people, if they have something, for example, a disease or something they want a miracle they want to happen, they walk barefoot. Walking barefoot in fucking Caracas. That's you know what I mean. It's a lot, but they do it and they walk for hours. Some of them even they kind of
whipping
themselves.
Yeah.
It's intense. I never vibe with that too much. No. I was a bit good. Also, the purple color is not my favorite one.
The purple. It's a really
But alright, but I get it why, but okay. But yeah, Venezuela is like a huge thing. Yeah. It's huge. But then it was funny because I have that. But then also on Sundays when I go to my grandpa, we used to go, we have also like a big lunch. And also we have a lot of chocolate because Italians in Easter have the eggs, like the big eggs. So sometimes we have like these huge eggs made of chocolate. You need to unwrap them. Yeah. And when you break them, they're like toys inside, things like that. Chocolate eggs. And there's always
that
this
kind of cute thing.
That was cute. That reminds me to my
I think it's
because
nice.
he went in like a whole feast of food because obviously very Catholic Italian.
Yes,
so
exactly. So it's my week this week.
It is
right?
your week, yeah. I mean, it is your week.
It is your week this week.
I have no secret topic, so it is your week.
So it's time for
Claire's secret topic of the week.
Okay, so this week, it's just going to be like a little chat about something.
Okay.
So I was thinking a lot about how TV shows and like kind of cultural things, but maybe more TV shows kind of fuck up our perception of relationships.
Oh, very interesting.
So it's like quite broad, but I just thought we can, I mean, I've got some examples of things that I've been thinking about, but I think, and I want to know, like, do we think that this is something that is changing or is it still quite like messy? How much of a big impact do these things really have on our views of like relationships? And that's my topic.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think definitely like we like it or not, TV and like movies and all of that, they have a really big impact, especially in the culture and where we see things. And that made me think, like, for example, like recently, there's like this boycott against Disney.
Okay.
Because Disney, they're very progressive, and with Disney are going to this direction of like inclusiveness and like gay role models in their comics, and like very fluid, or talking about the period.
Yeah.
They're very like modernized. I mean, they're catching up with the times, of course, because you cannot just bring a human in this world and pretend that it's like 1950.
Yes.
Like they need to understand how the world is now, but a lot of people are very conservative, they're against that, and there's like this boycott towards Disney now because a lot of parents, they don't agree with Disney. They're like, oh, they're putting these things under my kids' mind, blah 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 blah. And it was recently this whole I think it's called Red,
the period film. I really want to watch
the period film. And it was crazy because I was reading the comments and a lot of people were like, oh, I don't want my kids to know about period. And it's like, why not?
Well,
and then they were saying like, oh no, my little girl is too young to know about period. And it was like, but the movie has a disclaimer of age, like it's good from like I think 6+ or something like that. And the thing is like, but why not? It's as natural as like breathing. We're not showing them sex that would be inappropriate for that age because they would understand. But something that will come. I imagine how good it would be if they tell you these things since you are slowly such a nice how Disney do films are very visual and let you understand step by step how it's natural.
And it's like perfect because it's like, it's such a good thing that they've done because, for example, with that film, I haven't seen it yet, but it's like because I remember like my mum sitting down telling me about that. It's really awkward trying to explain it. There were like weird like books that you could use, but not really. But imagine if you can if you've got like a little girl, for example, you can sit down with her and watch this film, which is probably, like you say, really beautifully made, and like kids, their attention is more grabbed by like a cartoon, and then have questions about that afterwards. It's like so helpful. I would imagine if you're a parent,
when the time comes, the kid will be like, oh, it's happening. Oh, now I'm prepared. I
remember that show.
Yeah, I know what it means. It's part of my nature.
Yeah, so people are so weird, right?
People
like
are fucking weird. So what you're saying, I think it permeates to everything. Yeah. Like how TV shows and movies, they affect.
It does.
Yeah.
So that kind of is implying that things haven't really changed. I mean, the examples that I kind of had in my mind were in terms of like shows and relationships. I think a lot of, because I work in my job, like I work on some shows from the 90s. Yeah. So, for example, like The Nanny is one.
Oh, yeah. We love The Nanny.
We love The Nanny.
Yeah,
and like
amazing.
She's amazing. Fran Drescher is amazing. I think they were very ahead of their time, you know. And she's her ex-husband was gay, so they talk a lot about like it's very inclusive for the time. They had like people of colour on the show, and she's I've watched interviews with her now, and she said like she was always very aware of that.
Yeah.
However, this is just one example of The Nanny, just because I work with it. But I'm going to mention
like wrong thing.
Well, I just think, I mean, sorry if this is a spoiler, but it was on in the 90s, so whatever, catch up. But basically,
catch up with the time.
Catch up with the time. But like her and Maxwell. So you know, the premise of the show is she's a nanny from like an area in like Queens or something, and he's like a like posh English guy. He's like a director, and like they have that classic on again, off again relationship. But and of course they end up together eventually, and she's basically waiting for him to pick her. Like, you know, she's dating other people, he's dating other people. And it's really like bad in a way. And like, I understand that it's a show and like, that's the suspense of like, are they going to get together? Are they not going to get together? But it's kind of like...
negative value that it's selling a bit.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, she kind of waits for him. She waits for him for like 6 years. I think another example that always really irks me is Carrie and Big in Sex and the City. Awful, like, again, 6 years of like back and forth. He treats her terribly.
Carrie, listen, it is different.
Oh, it's never different. It's 6 years of never being different.
He like goes off with somebody else and they like have
because
an affair,
he's a man and that's how men are.
And like,
quotes, that's a justification a bit.
It's mental. And like Ross and Rachel as well, super toxic that for me is one of the worst there.
And they were on a break, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
They do were on a break. You know, this
on again, off again.
It's actually have a really, really toxic relationship. And like think about it. Yeah.
He's like, if you watch Friends as an adult, you just think, what the hell? Because, you know, he's really crazy jealous about that guy, Mark or something. That's where they break up.
For no reason.
He's like completely paranoid.
Yeah. We were on a break.
That, for all I knew, could last forever. That, to me, is a break up.
You think you're going to get out of this on a technicality?
Look, I'm not trying to get out of anything, okay? I thought our relationship was dead.
And like completely like hounds her until she like breaks up with him.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, it's really bad. And I think we could go on and on with these different examples that you guys watching will probably have your own examples of things as well. But I think it really does, especially because I think we were growing up with these shows. It really
stinks, kind of.
Yeah, I think so.
You're right. I feel like, and not to make fun of this, but I do make fun of it. But I've met and I have friends in the past. They're not around me. That sounds a bit like they're not my friends, close my friends anymore. But I've met, especially with women, that they're really waiting for the prince to come for them, and that's nothing. I'm saying this is real. That they wait for the man to come for them and to save their life, to save the whatever, like the perfect, charming guy to come. You know, like these unrealistic expectations that movie and series does, because you know we are all humans, and you cannot put like your future and your expectations of love or something in the hands of someone else. It's
very like, dangerous.
Very dangerous. Also, like, again, like, I feel so strange why, especially, I feel like more in a straight relationship, because it comes from these concepts, right? Like, women waiting for the man to be all of these things for her, and like, oh, you are the man, so you need to do this, you need to do that, you need, you know, it's kind of like, when you think, now, I think we have the spaces nowadays to talk more about it, to think about it, when you go deep on that, it's very fucked up. And like why you would need to give this power to someone else and to wait for that
and also
validation run away. It's weird.
The sitcoms, like why do they keep on accepting really shit behaviour? And I think that's a thing that, not to get too dark, but I think we see that in our lives all the time with like these. We spoke about this last week in our toxic masculinity episode. Yeah. Like women putting up with really shit men, but if you think about, then you go to the sitcoms, that's what they're doing. Like Ross is shit. Okay, he's got some good qualities, but he's shit, or he treats her shit. Mr. Big, really shit. And it's sort of that thing of where women, I think, are told like, oh well, you know, it's a man. You can kind of put up with it, take them back, because how many women take men back? It happens all the time, and I don't think men really do the same. Yeah, it's
definitely not the same ratio because of that. Because it's kind of like, oh, men are this or that, so you need to like put up with certain things. It's like, no, it shouldn't be like that.
Same thing that you were saying of like women need to like have a prince to save them. It's just so like real. And I think going back as well to like the Disney example, that's something that I think we're really told from a really young age. And I do think companies like Disney are trying to break it by, you know, having like more positive, like more empowered female
like Frozen,
characters.
for example, right? Frozen is a good example.
Or like Enchanted.
Enchanted, yeah.
What's the Spanish one called? Encanto.
Encanto, yeah. Encanto, yeah.
And then like Moana and stuff like that,
they're more empowered.
They're more like saving themselves kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of goes back to that whole thing of like, just let men do whatever they want and blah, blah, blah.
Because they're men, yeah. I think like I was thinking about like maybe like some good more role models
yeah.
about like, for example, good movies for it. Like
like where you think, oh, that was really, they really
for
nailed
example
it.
I think about like La La Land. I think it portrays like a more realistic expectation of what love is, and kind of like, I mean, it's kind of shit at the end.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna love you. I'm always gonna love you too.
But it's probably how it goes, right?
Yeah,
and it's
kind of
like,
totally.
you know, you're in love with someone, then life goes apart, and then maybe one day you meet this person again, and it's like, well, the person really reached their dream, but you're not part of it anymore. And that's how life is, you know, it happens a lot. So I think, for example, a movie like that is a bit more realistic of how relationships are. And I think we need more of that and less of like the princess thing, because we have a lot of that already, and why we keep repeating those patterns for sure.
I think one thing that I think did kind of change, I think they did have a lot of problems, but you've got to think now it's about 10 years ago, but that was Girls. That show.
I never watched it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I never watched it, yeah. Because I didn't like the creator.
Lena Dunham.
I never liked her. I don't know why.
Really? I really loved Lena Dunham.
I never liked her. I was like, I don't know why something about her didn't like.
Okay.
But I think also was like, I didn't watch the show. I was like, whatever. Yeah. I didn't really care at the moment. Yeah.
I think it would be, you would probably like it, but I think it's like, yeah, again, obviously that wasn't like a perfect example, but I don't think anything ever really is. But it like, that was, because it was often compared to Sex and the City, but like the ending was kind of like quite realistic in a way. Like you don't end up with who, because you know Carrie and Big, obviously they end up together, and it's like, really, would they like, after that? Like, would you?
And it's shit if they ended up together. You know, like this is a really bad thing.
It really kills me at the end of Sex and the City, because you know he's like, it says this line of like, oh, it took me a really long time to get here.
It took me a really long time to get here. But I'm here.
Hun, do you want somebody who it's taken you 6 years to make up their mind about you?
That's shit, yeah. It's
and
really,
it's only
really
when
shit,
she's like, I'm done, I'm with somebody else. Yeah. And then he's like, that's actually really problematic. And it's like Rachel as well, she bloody goes again to Paris, doesn't she? And then Ross is like...
Yeah, it's true.
You know.
Yeah, it's a problematic thing. And of course, obviously, life and relationships are not like that simple. They have a lot of like, ups and downs. But I think like definitely this show that put this planned like a seed on us that we don't realize. Yeah. I haven't watched Euphoria yet, sorry. But I guess Euphoria, for what I know, it represents a bit more an open view of how relationships are, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does a really good job, Euphoria, of talking about like toxic relationships, I think from and like domestic abuse, and like I think it, like how relationships can be very toxic even if they're not physically abusive, like that kind of thing.
You fucking left me when I fucking needed you.
Addictions can affect relationships, how relationships change. I think it does do a really good
realistic
job of
more,
it. In a young way, because obviously they're a lot younger, so it's still got that kind of edge of like high school.
Of course.
You know.
Recently, like for example, a lot of shows and movies, they include more gay characters, right? But gay characters not as the funny gay one, because that's a problem as well, and that's why culturally, not to like take the topic to another direction, but it's kind of like it goes in that same thing, like socially, like gays are always the funny one, the kind of the jokey one,
or
the
like the
clown,
sidekick best
or the
friend.
sidekick best friend, blah blah blah. So that cliche is there for such a long time. But recently, like a lot of shows and a lot of movies are trying to portray them like in a normal way as gay people are, like as straight people that are living their normal lives and they're having the same, you know, it's not like they're a different breed of humans, it's the same. So I think it's kind of good how movies recently are representing more gay love and gay relationships, like in a way that is the way it is, like a realistic, the realistic way. And I think that's how, like, in the need for the new generation, for what's to come, they will have less of these problems, because it will be like, oh yeah, there's like a gay couple there, what's the problem, you know? And it's not like a joke or like making fun of something, it's just like it's realistic. So I think I find that very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of, I watched this movie, like it was like a Christmas movie.
I loved
the gay one,
with,
right?
The guy from Ugly.
The guy from Ugly Betty. Yeah, It's
I love
super
that
corny,
show.
but it's so like
it was so cute.
fresh.
It's a film. It was a film, yeah.
It's a film
Yeah.
on Netflix. It's Last Christmas or something like that.
Something like that. Anyway, we'll link it or something. We'll reference
so that
it,
was
yeah.
like this Christmas on Netflix,
Yeah.
and it was interesting because it made me think a lot. Like, wow, this is like, it's very interesting how their relationship. I don't know if the relationship. I don't know if it was a bit toxic. They were a bit they were good friends.
They were good friends, but then it turned out that one of them was kind of secretly in love with the other one, and then
Which is a bit shit, but I think it wasn't like that.
No.
Toxic
Yeah.
ways, you know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't represent anything weird. It's something I guess it could
it
happen.
was kind of like My Best Friend's Wedding, but gay.
It's
kind of thing. It's kind of like that.
Kind of like that,
like,
yeah. But I found very interesting because there are moments that I was stopping like, well, yeah, it's kind of cool how they represent this couple that they are gay and they're in love or whatever it is, like any other movie. And I think that was the goal of the movie, being like a regular movie, but happens to be that the characters are gay. That's it. There's no different. And I think that applies to every different category. It's how love and like how relationships are portrayed, which I think is like the main point of like what we're talking about.
And it's tricky, right? Because it's sort of like, I think you have to appreciate that like they are like a TV show, and I think this is kind of a thing that I've heard people say before, like, oh well, it's just a TV show, it doesn't really matter, because of course they're going to be like super drama and everything like that. But I do think that we accept a lot of drama in our own relationships, and I wonder where that, because like love should be peaceful. It really should be.
It
like,
should be. Yeah.
I know that we're coming at this from like our early 30s. I know that it's like can be fucking volatile when you're younger.
In the 20s,
but generally,
that's how love should be.
It should be like, I always think of it as like blue, like a kind of energy. Like, you don't want it to be like,
should bring you happiness and calmness,
exactly,
and like
tranquility,
good stuff at the end.
and like when you're coming and going. Of course, we all have our ups and downs, but generally, like where you are. But that's not the standard that TV shows say that you should have. And I just wonder how much like cultural things like that have shaped our points of view. I mean, It's quite hard to say, but.
And I also think there's a complicated point of this. It's like sometimes when a show is a comedy, there's the always complicated thing about comedy and what's the line, right? Because then sometimes, because it's a comedy, just for the sake of a laugh, they create all the situations that can be very toxic and very negative for you to laugh. And there's a point like where you are like, so what we should do about this? Like we should keep doing these mean jokes to make people laugh even though they portray a negative thing,
totally.
or we should stop doing it. But then it's like what we do with humor, then we don't make more humor, like I think that kind of thing. And I feel like comedians, they feel it's a tricky time for comedians as well, because for them I think it's possible to make humor without offending anyone.
Agreed.
It doesn't have to be always like offending people about your race, your color, about your background to make fun. For me that's a bit like old school. Like we don't need to make fun of like your hair for me to laugh, or for my beer for me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, are we not past this? Is this still funny? But it still happens. But sometimes I think a lot of this comedy and humor, it comes from these stereotypes that I think it keeps perpetuating them. So it's kind of like how we play with them, or maybe it's about awareness. It's about like, this is just comedy, it's not the truth, which I think TV shows and things like that, it becomes our truth. And it's kind of like
super true.
How it's portrayed. So this is how you expect, or that's how you hope it to be many times. Depends on the situation. So I think it's very tricky. It's very, very tricky.
Because it's kind of like in like with TV shows, especially when you're growing up, because let's say that this is kind of where the damage is done, right? Because probably now we can look at it like, oh, come on, it's not like that, or something like that. But when you're young, it's like permeating your brain. Maybe you don't have that many examples in your life of like what a relationship should be. Like, yes, you have your parents, and of course we all know like that is the like first thing that influences how you interact in your future relationships. But then after that, like you can have like extended family and all of that, but then probably TV is like a really big example, because it's always there, and because you don't like at school it's not really, that's more about like friendships. Yes, okay, then it can be about relationships, but it's like literally showing you examples of how things should be.
There's one movie or show that you really love apart from Sex and the City that you think is really problematic. I'm thinking like one of J-Lo movies. I'm sure they're fucking problematic.
yeah.
I'm sure, because, you know.
Oh my God. You know that film that I love? Now I'm going to want to watch it.
Which
but now if you think about it, it's really fucked up. It's Made in Manhattan.
Made in Manhattan.
Because it's like she's Latina as well. And I swear they make some really like low-key racist comments. And she's a maid. It's like, oh my God. I'd love to hear what she thinks about that now.
I was thinking like in Marry Me, because we watched Marry Me recently about J-Lo. And even though I think the movie was a bit like... It has like a little of a feminist, but it was very like, because there's something about J-Lo sometimes, even though we love her, she can be a bit cold. Not cold, a bit like, she doesn't go like into like extremes with anything. She kind of stays in the middle.
Like not vanilla, but a bit.
Not vanilla, but like you know what I mean? Like I won't stand on that. Like I think Marry Me has like for example, like a feminist like touch, but she could go farther, but she didn't. So she stayed kind of like, let me do this for everyone, so I'm not gonna go, which she could. But I'm thinking like, it is like, do you think like a really bad stereotypes there in that movie?
Let's think about the Marry Me. Because it's like
because it's kind of weird that she got like the boyfriend basically was cheating on her, and then she decided to replace him with a random guy.
Why not? Yes, I'll marry you.
It's kind of like, I mean, of course it's a comedy. It's like to make fun of it, ha. But it's kind of like, do you really need to react like that? It's like it's kind of like, does that make sense?
And
like,
it's kind of like that thing of like, she's in such a lot of pain because like Maluma cheats on her. Fucking Maluma. That it's like I know what you mean, because it's like, oh, you go for the next guy. Of course it happens at the concert that, he's like, marry me. She's like, yeah, and like obviously like her pride is so wounded, she feels so bad. But it's like,
also, I think this thing like, Maluma is the hot Latin guy, handsome, charming, all of that, and then Owen Wilson is like the dad. He's like older, he's not really that attractive and all of that. So it's kind of portraying this thing like typical thing like, oh, guys, when they're too beautiful, too full in themselves, they're gonna be bad. And then the good ones with a kid and like a teacher are really good, they have a good heart. That's a really fucked up stereotype.
It's
because that means
true.
that I think you will think like, oh no, because he's so beautiful, he must be like a fucking piece of shit. And then maybe they feel he needs to act like that because he's so handsome. So like, oh no, I need to have this.
But I've heard people say, oh, if they're too good looking, they're going to cheat on you. How toxic is that? Because that's really unfair, because they might be really beautiful, but like they might have a really good heart.
They don't have to cheat on you.
Do you know what I mean? Like or you're almost expecting, and that's putting yourself on the back burner as well. Because it's like, also as if Maluma would cheat on J-Lo. I don't think anyone. Well, no, she did get cheated on, didn't she? Why? Who would dare?
But clearly,
anyway.
it doesn't. You see, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. Like
it's about your character. It doesn't matter what you look like.
But I think I think movies like, even though they're comedy, but I think those messages are there for a really long time, and then it's kind of like, oh yeah, if you read, obviously it's a comedy, you shouldn't read that much into it. But when you watch I think we're lucky because we like many different things. We like artsy film, independent films, like shitty shows, shitty films. We have like a big perspective of things are, because we are very curious and we like different things. But if you only like that type of things and your life is just like this type of TV shows and movies, that creates like a way of thinking around you, and that's where the problem comes.
Not to sound like a snob as well, because I know I can be a bit of a snob, but I feel like sometimes this is why I'm not, and you can definitely come at me, please tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe this does, but I was thinking about bringing this up, but I've never really watched these shows. But like Love Island, and like is it called like Married at First Sight and stuff like that? Like
one of the shows,
the kind of reality. I wonder what that does to people's perception of relationships. And I mean, if you guys have watched those shows and you think that they're really great for showing actual interactions, because we've mainly spoken about like dramas or like sitcoms or whatever.
That's true.
But that kind of stuff, I do wonder what impact that's having.
Definitely.
Because I just think the messages that we get about love are just so toxic on every level, but it really should kind of be simple, but it's really, and it's hard for us to like break it down, but it like
it's hard to break it down because it's so
ingrained in us.
It's so ingrained in us, and it's so like, we got all these messages all the time around. It's kind of like, but I think that's your job when you're getting older. It's kind of like dissect and see which things you think actually make sense, and what things actually are really fucked up. But yeah, it's hard stuff.
You know, one thing I think I told you about this, but I saw this on Instagram. It was because obviously they've updated the algorithm, so I got this thing recommended in my recommended page, and this video made me want to be sick. It was this woman, and she said, ladies, next time you think about messaging a man, or heaven forbid double messaging a man, just think, does the egg swim to the sperm, or does the sperm swim to the egg?
God.
So no, there's your answer. The sperm swims to the egg, so e.g. you need to let the man come to you, do the chasing. And I just thought, oh, allow this, honestly.
This is so backwards
what kind
thinking.
of... And she's got like 100k followers.
So imagine,
and it's like,
where
it's
the
like
message
dating
goes.
tips, advice. Okay, fine, yes, we all know that works when you play hard to get, but it's not going to go anywhere if you keep on playing hard to get, because you have to move out of that phase.
Exactly.
But that kind of advice, I thought, what?
It's very negative.
So a woman, again, exactly that thing that you said at the beginning, a woman is like a little princess waiting for her prince to charge in and ask her out on a date and save her.
And it's crazy that the message, it kind of changed the form, but the concept is the same.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the prince anymore, but we're talking about the things, right? Like
totally. If you don't like, if you like a guy, play hard to get, because you need to and that's super Latin as well.
That's what telenovelas tells you all the time. Most of things.
Telenovela. Oh my god, telenovelas must give like crazy.
Telenovelas are fucked up. When you watch them, some of them are like, whoa, those messages there are really, 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 really bad culturally, and that's why, you see the patterns after.
Because I think there's a thing as well, and a lot of like Latin culture in general, and like with telenovelas, is the jealousy thing. Like they're very jealous, like super.
I'm gonna kill your sister if you don't love me, and after that, I'm gonna kill your mom because I'm gonna push her towards the stairs. And you will come back to me. You're gonna be in your knees, You're gonna be back in your knees, and you're gonna be. Like, I wanted my love like a fucking crazy person. I will say no, but then I'm gonna take you back. It's kind of like...
I think I'm a bit like that, to be honest. I was like, oh, this sounds like me. I think I'm a touch of that. It's like, you've been there.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Like,
a little bit of these things, it's fine if you're aware of them.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're really aware of what you're doing, it's okay. Like, hard to get can be fun for a while, but I think you need to know the intentions and how, like... Yeah, okay,
and not throwing another woman under the bus. That's something that's a big no. Okay, and so, you have 60 seconds to tell us your thoughts on this topic. Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let go.
I definitely think, I think we're moving forward with this. I think we're doing a lot of things, properly. Getting better on the topic, but I do really think that it's, a step-by-step thing, and I think it has to it's nice that we have, for example, streaming services now, because we have more options and we don't have only what TV tell us, but I do think TV really damaged us in many ways. Also gave us amazing things, because of course part of the culture or how blah blah blah, but literally culture is shaped with things that are, especially art in that sense, that type of thing, visual stuff, it really shaped our culture. That's why it's really damaging, and I think it's really good for the new generation. And I think it's not about to erase what happened, but it's about having more representation of things, and I think more realistic love, more inclusive love, more 5
seconds.
Real relationships are needed, and Anyway, it doesn't mean that we don't need to have a Prince Charming thing or whatever. It's fun if it's for the right reasons as well, and it's kind of it comes from a place that no one is hurt, because I feel at the end of the day, always women are hurt in these shows, and things are always women being in these situations that they're shit for them. I feel that.
Totally.
And men are always shit as well, so that's bad as well. We don't need to think all men are shit and all women are the weak ones. It's
exactly. And you really made me think about that thing, because when you said about the kind of Owen Wilson versus Maluma example in Marry Me, it's you have the hot guy who's a disaster, who cheats, who will break your heart, and then the cute safe guy who is a maths teacher and has a kid and won't fuck you over because he's not good looking enough to go anywhere else. And that's also the thing in Disney always. There's always the evil guy who the girl really loves at first, but then he's evil, and then there's the cute kind of safe guy, and that's sad, because that's the thing of women are always put into categories, but so are men
as well.
The nice guy or the fuck boy, basically.
That's true.
So it's Yeah, affects everyone.
Anyway, like
interesting though. Thank you for your thoughts. I think we can go
this topic. I really like this topic. I think it's really, and I think we can go to more like dark examples for sure.
I think another one will be interesting to talk about is like beauty standards in Disney. I shouldn't have said that because I should have brought it as a secret topic, but you'll forget. You'll forget. In a couple of months, I'll be like, and then so we'll be like, but yeah, because that's a big thing as well, you know, or beauty standards in TV shows. But
that's another
disaster. You're like. Ay, Dios mío.
Ay, Dios mío, literally. Ay, Dios mío. Okay, guys. Thank you very much, everyone, to listen to us, watching us, whatever, again. And we'll see you around next week.
See you next week. Bye,
guys.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.